They call it ruthless, but the art of war is a manual for surviving warfare, not indulging in it. So, one of the things that modern audiences get wrong when they read The Art of War by Matua Sun Tzu is they begin to make moral prescriptions from their perspective. Granted, many parts of the book are blatantly ruthless. For example, the prescription to start looting the property of enemy civilians. The book does not distinguish between legitimate and illegitimate targets. Of course, by the standards of the Geneva Convention, this is unacceptable. However, we need to take into account the world in which the book was written. Without justification, sort of like, to quote the fictional character Dr. Manhattan from the comic book The Watchmen, without condoning or condemning, I understand. That having that detached sort of worldview, which ironically is a very Taoist worldview, I might add, is the best way to understand this book. So, what is about the morality of the book that sort of people get hung up on? So, we first must understand what warfare means to Matua Sun Tzu. So, Matua Sun Tzu, when he talks about warfare, he has a different interpretation as to what it is. In the European tradition, for example, warfare is romanticized. It's a sort of opportunity for men to display heroism and glory and things like that. It can even, this is getting into darker aspects of European history, be an opportunity to engage in activities you otherwise might not be able to get away with in civilian life, if you know what I'm talking about. Sun Tzu is coming at this from a very different perspective because he's informed entirely by his Taoist sort of mindset. So, what is warfare? Well, the cosmology of Taoism is cyclical. You might have heard that before. What the hell does that actually mean? Well, what it means is that as the universe moves forward in motion, certain things go through cycles. They just happen. They're just part of existence. An example being that baby rabbits are born in the spring. Every spring. And old rabbits die in the winter. Okay? And so this is a cycle that just keeps going. And it repeats itself over and over and over again. The Taoist view on warfare, which Matua Sun Tzu adopted, is that warfare is innate. It's inherent in everything. You see it. The tiger and its prey, the shark and the fish, storms, weathers, the beaches are sources of warfare. When you think about it, it is literally a war between the land and the sea, and the two of them meet in a violent confrontation, hence waves, and the result of waves hitting rocks, sand. So the Taoist view, the view that Sun Tzu has, is that warfare is neither something to revel in, it is neither glorious, but it is neither something to be condemned either. It is just simply reality. It's a reality of existence. It's embedded in everything. Everything has to engage in warfare. This gets back to the notion of Tao, that the universe is moving forward in motion. And so, therefore, your power, so to speak, comes from engaging in death. That is, studying the motion of the universe, studying Tao, and exhibiting Zaran, which is learning to move with it. And so it's hard to explain, it's sort of hard to wrap your head around, but basically there is, and not in a moral sense, but in a sort of sensibility sense, there is a right time to engage in warfare, and there is a wrong time to engage in warfare. So what Matua Sun Tzu would say is that at certain times you shouldn't go to war, quite simply because you'll die. At other times, you ought to go to war. You should go to war. You have no choice but to go to war. Perhaps an example one could think of is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. At that point, the people of Ukraine had no choice but to take up arms. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that is an example of when Sun Tzu would say, you don't have a choice. Warfare was thrust upon you. And so in the same way that winter comes around every year, and that, yes, you could live like a nomad and move with the seasons. This is an example Sun Tzu talks about, and sort of live in a state of perpetual summer. At some point, you're going to experience a winter. And so you can avoid warfare all you want. At some point, you're going to go through it. And so you ought to be prepared for it. And so again, De, studying the motions, Zuran, that is going with the motion of the universe, and Wu Wei, that is disengaging in the sort of stoic manner and understanding, okay, I need to be prepared. I need to be ready to be able to kick ass in case warfare is thrust upon me. So that is his understanding of warfare. It is an amoral, inevitable part of life. And so within this context, Sun Tzu is giving you a series of principles or teachings in order to be able to survive warfare. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, again, it's not a moral prescription. This is not within a moral framework. This is within a survivalist framework. And he's interested in two things, and it's in this order of priority. Number one, the honor of the house, family, nation at hand. So an example being Ukraine, right? From a sort of Taoist traditional perspective, the first priority is the honor of Ukraine. And what does that mean? What that means is there is no way in hell we're going to bend the knee. So, Putin, you may be wanting us to bend the knee. Go F yourself. It's not going to happen. So that's number one. Number two, physically speaking, how do we survive? So that is the order of priority that Sun Tzu is that is his priorities in that order. The honor of the house or the nation or whatever at hand, and two, the survival, how to get the hell out of this, how to actually win this thing. And so that is why he tells you to do things like engaging in the old wartime tradition, but arguably horror, of bellum se ipsum lit, which is Latin for the war will feed itself. And essentially, that is the act of looting. That your soldiers ought to loot the civilians and civilian infrastructure of your enemy. Because, as Sun Tzu says, one cow of theirs is worth two of yours. I rather like that saying. I think it's kind of funny, but I can see how a modern audience would be horrified by this. But again, Sun Tzu is not thinking in terms of Geneva Convention, NATO, all of this. He's thinking strictly in terms of survival. And from a purely survival lens, eating their cow and saving one of your cows for another day is a very good idea, pragmatically speaking. Just that raw pragmatism that Sun Tzu is talking about. And so that is the moral framework within which he's operating. I hope that clears things up.